Can Indiana keep the good vibes rolling in Bloomington without Kurtis Rourke? I don't know. We're going to answer that question. It's a tough one. Jacob Goins, Locked On Hoosiers, and Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies. We've got a three-way attack going here. Jacob, we'll start with you. How confident are we in the backup quarterback situation over there for Curt Cignetti and the boys?
I mean, it's Washington, so I could probably play quarterback and we'd be okay.
Here we go.
Here
we go. This is why I was invited.
Yes, I feel like Palpatine right now. Good.
I can read this little graphic you got over here too. I understand why I'm here.
No, I think the backup quarterback situation is fine. Taven Jackson was the starter a year ago in Bloomington. Wasn't a good one, but he did start a year ago. So this is not going to be lights too bright, what the heck is happening type of situation here. And he did play the second half a week ago against Nebraska and looked pretty good doing it. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and pretty much was a plug and play type of guy. So I think with the system that Indiana runs, running the football with Ellison and Tyson Lawton and playmakers on the outside, I just think the system works really well. So if you don't have your starter for a game, possibly 2, I think we're going to be okay. It does help that, again, it's Washington.
Oh boy, Roman, are you just going to sit there and let him talk down to your dogs like that?
Well, I mean, that seems like the whole reason you brought me on this show, Spencer.
Excuse you. That's my name right there. You can see it on YouTube, and it should say underneath neutral arbiter of college football, because that's my mantra when I roll out of bed in the morning.
Right.
Yes, and for all your audio listeners, it says how Indiana wins without their QB. So let's be fair here. Now, when I look at this, I'm really curious to see how this Washington defense responds. We saw them get just out physical by Iowa a couple weeks ago. Really interesting story on this Wednesday afternoon. Jedd Fisch went on a local radio show and said, hey, that's on me. I didn't do a great job making sure these guys were physically, mentally prepared in terms of the times, the 9 a.m. kickoff. That was way more different than I thought it was going to be. So he said he's trying a completely different approach on that front. And we have to keep in mind, as much as Spencer might want to omit this fact, this is still a top 10 Washington defense. They're number 8 in the country in yards allowed, number 16 in points, right there with Oregon, Spencer, in the same light in terms of points allowed. But
other teams in the college football world, Oregon is a random selection there on your part.
My bad.
Yes,
my
thank
bad.
you. Thank you.
Neutral arbiter.
That is my title in this particular capacity.
It doesn't physically say that right there, so I'm not going down that road. But no, I have a lot of confidence in this Washington defense. This is the toughest test this Husky secondary is going to face all year. And Steve Belichick loves to play man coverage. He's got guys that have great size and length on the outside, and I'm really curious to see if they can continue to win one-on-one battles in coverage.
Jacob, when Washington went to Iowa for an early kickoff, and let's just say it didn't go as planned for the Huskies, they gave up a 40-piece to the Hawkeyes with a quarterback who had not thrown a touchdown pass against a Power 4 opponent since 2021. Now, Roman, you're not going to hate this question as much as you think, but just let that sink in for another half moment for no reason in particular. When I think about Indiana and what they've done offensively this year, it's Kurtis Rourke. It's slinging the football, throw it all over the yard. Does that have to change for the Hoosiers in a dramatic way? Do they have to try and find that ground game success that Iowa did with Caleb Johnson?
The good thing is I don't think Indiana has to find it. I think they have it. It just has been overshadowed by, I think, what has been up to this point a Heisman level performance from Kurtis Rourke. I think he should be in that conversation. There's a long way to go. Injury will play a part in this, but I think the running game has been there, and it's been something that when Indiana needs it, they go to it. And the offensive line deserves so much credit because they have just created every possible hole, big chunk play after big chunk play. Indiana will line up on 3rd and 8, and they'll run the football, guys. They don't care because they have that much confidence in what they're doing right now. And with a 2-back system, they are fresh all the time. And so in terms of the game Saturday, you may not see as many of the 25-yard breadbasket on the sideline throws that we saw with Kurtis Rourke because let's just be real. I don't think Taven Jackson has that in the bag. But again, I don't think you have to have him do that. Get the simple plays, one read, get out, take off if you want to. That's something we may be able to see Taven Jackson do. But no, I'm not worried about Indiana moving the football or scoring the football. They're the best team in the nation right now in terms of those things. So I'm not worried about that. Washington's defense is good, but again, this is in Bloomington. We're on College game day. There's no way Indiana loses this game.
Roman, that Washington offense still has numbers that would turn a lot of people's heads for a 4-3 football team with losses to Iowa and Rutgers, but they're kind of the masters of move it down the field and come away with as few points as possible, whether that's missing field goals, having field goals blocked, going for it on fourth down, and not being successful. Do you think Jedd Fisch has to rectify that going into this game, or Washington won't have a chance?
You forgot penalties. Penalties are also.
I did.
Yeah,
I did forget penalties.
There are more ways to not score points, Spencer, and Washington has found a lot of them this season. And no, but you're absolutely right. Yes, and that's one thing that he said earlier in the week that he took a really deep dive on was the red zone offense, and a huge part of that, shocker, Jonah Coleman. Jonah Coleman has only gotten, I believe it's 24 carries over the last two games, or no, it's less than that. It's around 20 after getting just 9 against Iowa, where some of that's game script related. And Jedd Fisch said they've been managing his workload a little bit. He suffered a couple of bumps and bruises over the course of the season. Took the bye week, took the last week and a half or so to get healthy, which is really nice to see. And that's something where it's really frustrating because, as you said, Spencer, when you look at this offense as a whole, the numbers are really nice. Washington has outgained their opponent in every single game this season, yet they're 99th in the country, averaging just 24 points a game. It's extremely frustrating to look at from that perspective. And then moving forward, you need to find ways to fix that. You've got a lot of great weapons on the team, especially when you just look at the way the play calling has been successful between the 20s. Now, when you get to the red area, score touchdowns. Grady Gross shouldn't have been put in position to miss as many kicks because you shouldn't be 14 for 28 and scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, that's not a ratio that's going to get it done. I got to tell you, as we're recording this show, I got back from a round of golf that reminds me a lot of the Washington offense. I am a pro at setting myself up to succeed, but once you put that flat stick face club in my hand on the smooth surface and say, put the white ball into the cup over there, it takes me at least 2 tries, sometimes more. So I empathize with Washington. It can be difficult.
Roman, you guys have what, USC next week? Is that right?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
it's a perfect time to work on some things because it ain't happening Saturday. I'm just going to be real. You can work on penalties and red zone offense and kicking field goals against USC. Believe me, they'll allow you to. Just, it ain't happening this weekend.
No, it starts this week. Starts right now.
You kick as many field goals as you want, man. We scored touchdowns. Do you know how many field goals our kickers had this year? 4, and he's made all of them.
That's insane.
Yeah, boy, the envy on Roman's face was just permeating through the screen.
You know why,
right there.
Spencer? Because you remember what this Washington offense looked like last season.
Yes, it was very different.
We were spoiled by that, and yes, it's a coming back down to earth where it's like.
Well, and the other thing too is
this is how the other side lives.
Is here's if you just took a blank slate. Or if you removed all the external factors and just looked at Washington's offense, you'd be like, a guy who's thrown for, 15,000 yards in his career? I don't know. You got 3 receivers that I feel pretty good about. That's probably a top 5, 6 receiving core in the Big Ten. And one of the 3 or 4 best running backs in the Big Ten as well. Yeah, they should be able to score points. But averaging 24 a game doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Also, USC catching the random stray from Jacob up there. You would have thought that would have shown up from one of the Pac-12 guys here, RIP. But Indiana taking a shot at USC. And you know what? The Hoosiers being undefeated and USC not, that's the thing.
I do want to share.
That's the thing.
I do want to share with the audience that Spencer texted me last weekend, and he has seen Indiana a couple times. But when he watched the game against Nebraska, he was like, oh. They've got talent. They're good. They're not just a weird undefeated team that didn't beat anybody. It's like, yeah. And to be completely honest, that's what's awesome about this team is it's not a fluke. Like there are legitimately talented dudes on this team, and Coach Sig is the best. I mean, College Game Days in Bloomington, the first time ever on a Saturday. It's going to be awesome. Yes, Roman.
Okay, I want to admit something. I said the exact same thing while watching that game. I like the first drive. I was like, "Oh,
that's a real defense they've got there in Lincoln." And Matt Rule's got a good defensive staff and a lot of players, and Indiana was just going right up and down the field. And I was kind of like, "Oh boy, that's a real thing." Let's get to our game predictions here. Then we're gonna predict the rest of the Big Ten to wrap up today's show. But I will start as neutral arbiter of college football here. and host of this particular show. I
refuse. Enough times, it'll become true.
Yes, exactly. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. If I pick against Indiana and then it turns out to not work out, I would feel like a fool. If I pick against Washington in this spot in Bloomington and they win, I'll say, you know what? Hat tip. I don't feel bad about that one. It's a March Madness style pick. So give me Indiana to win the football game. I think their offense can still do enough. 31-20. I like the, nope, 33-20. Just like that. 33-20. Hoosiers win. There's some craziness in this one with a backup quarterback.
Ooh, all right. I like it. I like it. Now, I will say, if we lose on the game that you pick us, I'm blaming you, and I will only blame you. I will.
I understand that.
Blamed. So I'm going to pick Indiana. Yes, because I do the Indiana podcast, but I just think Indiana's the better team. Even with the backup quarterback, was telling people all week, don't overthink it. Don't go against what you've done all year long. And just from a talent and coaching perspective, you're going to be better in this football game. I think Indiana wins. I'll take 34-17 Hoosiers.
Let's talk jinxes first and foremost. Spencer, if Washington wins this game, I will do my cold open for the post-game show and just say, thank you, Spencer McLaughlin. that will be my cold open.
Oh, if ever there's been a way to get me to root for the Huskies, that's as close as you can come.
Now, you know, as both of you gentlemen know, I am not one for predictions, as I am the world's biggest jinx. So watch me fence it here. Washington covers. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. Yeah. That was riveting stuff.